name is Evie. For those that are new to my channel, this is basically my experience and my journey with my dissociative identity disorder. Now, keep in mind, no system is the same. When you hear the fact of, when you hear the fact of dissociative identity disorder being a standalone disorder, it really is. Like, we've been diagnosed officially for over 5 years now, but we've kind of had it since we were really, really young. We showed signs of it, but can't really pick and choose. But what I mean to say is that me being a DIDer, if I were to meet another system, whether they were new or whether they were seasoned, sorry, I look like such a mess. I'm sorry. My system would not. No system is identical. The experiences are to themselves. Like, everyone has different roles. Their alters would not be the same thing as my alters. They may have a protector, but their protector may not be like, how my protector is. Like, it's different. It's just different. So when I make my videos, I just want to keep in mind that these are my experiences. I'm not speaking for anyone else. I'm just speaking from who I am as a person. So I hope that makes sense. So in today's video, I will be talking about the differences between co-fronting and co-consciousness. So another thing I want to put out is that I kind of don't want to make fact videos anymore. So a lot of these will probably be like story times on how I dealt with it, because like I said before, no one is the same. So when you watch my videos, if you are a young viewer, or if you have a family member, or let's say your significant other, whoever, I don't want to say that this is how they feel, because it's probably not. It's probably not. This is how I feel, and me alone. I can relate to others, but I can't speak for others, if that makes any sense. So from now on, I won't really put out videos that, are educational. I will just be speaking from my heart and talking about my experiences, and I hope you guys enjoy. If you guys have any questions, of course, I'll answer them from my own experiences, but I won't say, this is what DID looks like, because, everyone's different. So I hope you guys understand. So let's get started, shall we? So I guess I'll talk about co-fronting first. So if you guys are new, I am the co-host. I'm not the original host, but I am out probably 95% of the time. I am actually the face of the YouTube and the TikTok. And I tend to co-front a lot with the other primaries, especially when, let's say, I get triggered. But being the co-host, I am a lot more stronger, or my influence is a lot more potent, or out there than the rest of them. So I actually, just like Evelise and Kira, and Kira's a whole nother story, but I'll get to it. I can control how much time I have out, who is allowed, who can force me out. I can control all of it, just like Evelise. Even though she's the one that basically gets, snap her fingers and Thanos snap me if she wanted to. So, so let's talk. Okay, so I want to say my first experience with co-fronting was with my sister, Emily. For those that are new, Emily is our protector, and she's actually my twin sister. We were made at the same time, but I tend to co-front with her a lot, and you can see this with my style. Like, for example, when I'm co-fronting with Emily, I tend to dress a lot more grungier, a lot more e-girl. She also has a say in how we look. So this hair, for example, she chose it. So me and Emily tend to, basically bounce back and forth off of each other, which it's easier for me to do that with her than anyone else because number one, she's a primary, and number two, because we're twins, she's the closest one to me. So it's easier for me to, be with her than anyone else. I can co-front with anyone else. It's just that, Emily is just like a direct line on how I do things. So I can't really explain why the co-fronting happens. Me and Emily, I guess, like normal siblings, we try to fight for the attention. But I think it goes a lot more deeper than that, like I can't necessarily tell her not to, even though I can, I just won't. Cuz I try to keep the peace, So, story time, I guess. The first time I experienced co-fronting with Emily, we were probably like in 6th grade, and back then we used to get bullied a lot, like it's unavoidable. Kids are mean, We used to get bullied for our weight, how we looked, and for those that don't know, I am actually plus size. So I was basically kind of like, subjected to it, whether I wanted to be or not, which, don't bully people. Don't do it. Like, it's just so mean. Why would you do that? Like, so I needed a break, so I went to the bathroom. And in the bathroom, they had like these little busted up mirrors and stuff like that. But back then, before I really, took control as the co-host, Evelise was out a lot. So I was just kind of like, in the background. I didn't even go by Evie yet. I was still going by my original name, which is Alexia. I haven't adopted the personality of being the co-host or being Evie when Evelise decided that she did not want to be the host anymore. So I came out and we were in the bathroom, and we had this filthy habit of talking to ourselves, because even though I hadn't yet experienced seeing the inner world as clearly as I do now, we went through a lot of, depersonalization and stuff like that, to where we couldn't tell the difference between, reality and fantasy. So we kind of just, took it by ear. You know what I mean? So I remember looking in the mirror, and I remember, talking to myself, asking, why does this happen to me? Why can't I do something about it? Because I'm not a confrontational person. I'm really not. And I just kept thinking and thinking and thinking. I wish I had the balls to, stand up for myself. I wish I did, but I didn't. So I just kind of took it. And I remember I was just talking, and Emily co-fronted with me and actually spoke back. So imagine this. You're looking at yourself in the mirror, but you can tell that it's not you. It scared the shit out of me. And I bet you're all wondering, how are you scared? It's your twin sister. Keep in mind that we all never really had a fully front before. So Emily, even though we were made at the same time, I was made, first. So I was closest to Evelise. So I was the one that was able to fully front first. I was the one that was able, to build up a real personality for myself. Like, I was already broken off, whereas Emily was still kind of building up to becoming her own person, even though me and her were made at the same time. So it was kind of like I watched myself change. Like, I don't know if anyone else gets this. It still freaks me out to this day. But when you switch, you can tell based on the eyes. So when we switch, our eyes, like the pupils, will start to dilate, and our eyes will tend to, tint either darker or lighter, depending on which alters out. Our skin will often, get really either sweaty or clammy, or our color will wash out. It takes a lot for your brain to push forward a new personality, especially when it's so used to the headspace and the mindset of said person prior. So your body kind of does change with it. This is just my own experience, again. So I was talking to myself and I watched myself change. And I remember as clear as day looking at myself and seeing a completely different person. The vibe and everything changed. It was kind of like I couldn't recognize myself anymore. And Emily used to be very aggressive back then. She took her role very, very seriously. So I remember, talking, and next thing you know, I looked at myself and my lips moved and words came out, but it was like I wasn't the one doing it. You know what I mean? Like I was the one. It was like weird. So this was probably like, when I first started co-fronting with her, it was kind of like basically I had to allow the change to happen. Like I had to allow it. So I basically, even though I was still there, I allowed Emily to basically take over. And even though I was still conscious and still able to, control, Emily's influence was basically built into every action I made after that, at that day. So I remember, going back to the classroom, and I remember this is probably the first time I ever really stood up for myself, even though I was getting bullied by the same person. I remember, finally telling this person to shut the fuck up. Now, Emily, everyone knows, my mom knows, everyone knows that me not being confrontational, now that Emily's a full-fledged, alter of her own, and she's like fully aware of what she does, everyone knows that I have warning signs before I get set off, because even though I am the co-host, I can still be triggered, and I can still be forced out depending on if I can hold it. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like I have to hold myself and I have to keep restraining myself, but at certain times, if I keep getting pushed and pushed and pushed, I can't hold it anymore. So when I get triggered aggressively, Emily is the first warning. Emily is basically like, she'll come out and she'll go, back the fuck up. Sorry for my language. But if you continuously still keep going, because even though Emily is the protector, Emily doesn't put her hands on anybody. Emily is just very, bold and intimidating, and she tries her best to, overpower people just by talking. So she's very, defensive and very, you need to back up. If you keep pushing to the point, then you'll usually get 0. And 0's endgame. 0 is the one that will actually not hesitate to swing. 0, no. I don't like getting pushed to that point, because as the co-host, I am aware of what all the alters do. I mean, not aware of what they do when they're fronting by themselves, but aware of who they are as people. I don't like getting to that point because it's scary. It basically puts a bad taste in people's mouth. It kind of feeds into the stigma to where people with DID are violent. I don't like being seen that way. And for those that don't know, any alter can be abusive. Any alter can, turn around and be toxic. But in my system in particular, my mom's walking around upstairs. In my system in particular, the only abusive alters that I do have are my persecutor and my introject, which is L and 0. I'm not saying that, in the past, Emily was really aggressive. So Emily was very, abusive, especially to other people. So I'm not saying that it was always like that. I'm just saying for me now, they're my only abusive alters. That's it. So co-fronting, especially when I do with Emily, like I said, the style changes. The way how I talk tends to change too, because Emily tends to speak with more slang, and she tends to speak with more of an aggressive syntax, whereas I'm more like, playful or like chill out. Like, me and Emily, even though we're twins, we have very drastic personalities and styles, whereas I prefer, to wear either the natural glam makeup, and Emily will wear her grungy e-girl style makeup. But when we co-front together, we tend to like make it work, so it goes into more of a darker glam for me. Emily tends to, keep our bangs down, and she usually will straighten our hair. Sorry, I'm not feeling too well today. Like, I think I caught like a stomach bug or something. Like, boo-hoo. So, if you see like anything, you can tell, I guess, when I'm co-fronting. I'll throw up pictures now to basically show the difference between me and her. And then here will be like what we look like when we're co-fronting, or give an example. So that's co-fronting as well as I can explain it. Co-consciousness is different because it's kind of like, even though we're both, me and whoever else is both aware of each other, the other person or the other alter doesn't take the lead at all. So if you guys have seen the time I thought I was transgender, this is a perfect example of co-consciousness at its peak, because even though I was the one out most of the time, Elijah's influences and his energy was very potent onto me. So he was constantly trying to, come out. But he couldn't. He couldn't because he wasn't, he didn't fully break off yet. He didn't fully, find his place. So it was kind of like I kept getting these thoughts, these ideas, all this stuff without, it really being me. Because when I thought I was transgender, like, even though, I don't know if I said it in that video, but it was a very rough time for me because I hated myself. I hated the way that the body looked. I hated dressing like a girl, but I hated the idea of me becoming a boy, but it felt right. You know what I mean? And I guess you all are saying, well, why aren't you just gender fluid? I am. But when you have a male alter, constantly trying to, come in, and it's basically like shoulders, like hands on your shoulder and standing behind you type of feeling, but they don't say anything. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's so hard to explain, but basically, because of the fact that his influence was so potent and so, out there, I cut my hair. I started wearing more boyish clothes. It was a really scary thing because I didn't want to change like that. I said a lot of things. I came out to my mom, scared the life out of her because she was like, no, there's no way. But, and I guess, it was a mess. It was a mess. We went to school coming out to people as transgender. It was probably very and if you are from my high school and you watch my videos, I am sorry for being so all over the place, but when we first got diagnosed, it was kind of like all hell broke loose, because once we officially got diagnosed, it was kind of like a open door to all the alters. And we're talking about my very first build up to a system, which I had at least 30 plus alters. 30 plus alters. And I bet you all are wondering, but why? You only have 10 now. You only have 10 now. You're right. We do. And that's because a lot of them went dormant, or they basically merged into becoming a whole new person, like Raven. Raven, even though she's new, don't worry, she'll get her own introduction video soon, I promise. But even though she's new, her influences were built up off of what an alter named Imogen used to be. Like, even though Raven's a hypersexual alter, her personality and the way how she dresses is it's all influenced by our old alter Imogen, who went dormant a while ago. So, and by dormant, we don't die. We just kind of, go off and stay there. But they can come back. It's just that, it was too crowded, and Evelise, she picks and chooses who's good for the headspace for us to be in, like an almighty, powerful God. So I hope that makes sense, co-fronting, basically being a driver, but then having an actual passenger that you may allow to drive, versus co-consciousness, to where it's kind of just like a constant whisper in your ear, but they never show themselves, or they never take control. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, I will no longer be, saying this is fact. No, these videos are simply my own experiences. I hope you guys enjoy these story times. I hope you guys, comment down below what you want to know. And thank you so much for getting us over 100 subscribers. It's truly incredible, and I wouldn't want it any other way. So thank you for following our journey. Please remember to turn the notification bell on, like, comment, share, subscribe, and that way we can all grow together. Okay? Goodbye.